Hello everybody, good morning, welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news as Manchester United look to steal another Real Madrid transfer target superstar. We've also got the latest involving the manager situation at Manchester United. It was all about Xavi last night. It's all about Inzaghi this morning and a little bit about Amorim as well. We've also got another story in relation to a Manchester United superstar who could be looking at another role at Manchester United now, and just a little bit of what I'm bringing in every day around Manchester United and a little bit of a niche topical subject where Patrice Evra is saying that Jose Mourinho wanted to be the Man United manager after Sir Alex Ferguson, but it was blocked. Should it have been blocked? What could have been? We'll talk about that a little bit as well. But I hope you're doing very well this day. We're getting very, very close talking about Mourinho to that game against Fenerbahce tomorrow. Very excited about that. Check the preview out from last night on the channel. But let's get into this breaking news story this morning. Manchester United are determined to sign River Plate wonderkid Franco Mastantuono and are willing to make their move in January. He's a hot topic, he's a hot target, and apparently he's the next big thing coming out of Argentina. So much so that Real Madrid have apparently been scouting him for a very long time. Remember, Manchester United already have a couple of Argentinians. We've got Martinez, we've got Garnacho. So look, we have that pull. We've spoken about this, and inadvertently and on purpose, we spoke about when Erik ten Hag came into Manchester United that our South American recruitment isn't as good as it should be. And a lot of clubs, especially around Portugal, Italy, even Ajax, but certainly La Liga, are very good at recruiting South American talents, and the Premier League not so much, certainly Man United. But in fairness, Garnacho has come through the youth setup, having been brought in, of course. And also we've got Martinez. So we have got that pull in that area, and I think it will continue. Can we do this again? Because this lad, just to tell you a little bit about him, River Plate, 17 years of age, attacking midfielder, left-footed. I think he can play from the wing as well. It sort of fits the profile of what Man United need. I do my career mode Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and I have the same problem, even though it's a computer game. I don't really have an attacking midfielder other than Bruno. I mean, Eriksen, you're going to move on. Mount's not reliable. We do need somebody to come through in that area. There are a couple in the youth setup that you hope could do it, but we do need more talent coming through, and it's easier to get the next big thing than it is to go and try and get the big thing. We've actually been linked to a couple of other younger players in the same article, but I suppose the first thing to say is, where is this coming from? So it's coming from a journalist called George Baravel, who works for ESPN in Argentina. And he's basically saying that Man United are determined to sign him and are willing to make their move in January if they are to do it. And also goes on to say that Manchester United are also looking at a couple of other youngsters as well, both 17. So I think, look, we were speaking about this before, weren't we? We've bought three, I think they're all 17 in the summer, aren't they? Lasali, Obi Martin and Kone, I think they're all 17. So that's three in the summer already. If we can do three a year, suddenly you're bringing in a lot of talent, and if they're all well scouted, it's very exciting for the future. It's very, very clear that this is part of the strategy of Ineos and Ten Hag and Manchester United to look at these sort of things. And I mean, look at the success Real Madrid have had. And this is there was another, Christopher Vival is the name I was going to mention, Sufyan. You're absolutely spot on. I think this is absolutely, you've just nailed it. I mean, you should be presenting the show, Sufyan, because you're absolutely spot on. We can talk about Ineos, we can talk about Ten Hag, but of course, that's a very global thing to talk about the manager and the Ineos structure that's been brought in. Of course, somebody like Fivel is going to be massive in this sort of thing. I'd be very surprised, even though I don't want to sort of tempt fate. From what I'm hearing, I'd be very surprised if we don't bring at least one youngster in from the RB group. And looking at Salzburg, they've got 3 or 4 there, but it might be Leipzig. You don't know, but I think that will happen. Fivel's got very good connections there. I think we're going to see more and more of this, and it's almost becoming the new world, and it's not necessarily a bad world, is it? I mean, the article goes on to say that Mastantuono is on a list of 3 17-year-olds that Manchester United have been following for years. Chris Rigg at Sunderland, another midfielder, and Rosenberg's Nipan, who is also Norwegian, is also an attacking midfielder. So I think that, I mean, look, I don't know much about the Argentinian lad, but Nipan we've heard about for a while. Chris Rigg has really blown up this season. These are all exciting deals. And these are the deals that, I mean, it's not as exciting as going and signing Wirtz or Musiala, but we need to be active in this area. We have a huge amount of debt. We're a long way behind everybody else. We need to build a new culture. The best way to change the toxic, lazy, inconsistent culture of the dressing room of the last 10 years is to dilute it. Now, do you dilute it by bringing in big personality, big money players, or do you dilute it by bringing in younger players who are hungry? I think you do a bit of both, but you've got to do both. So, look, there was the guy, somebody in the chat's going to get a gold star this morning. What was the name of the Argentinian centre-back that went to Chelsea that we got linked to? I genuinely think we probably were looking at him. Chelsea had done a little bit more work. I think that any update on Xerxes' future? Well, I can talk about that in a moment, mate, Ladios. But yeah, I think that these are the sort of things that you've got to look at and be very excited about. Whether we can do this, a lot of people talking about the Argentinian lad, and I'm probably absolutely getting his name wrong, Franco Mastantuono, is obviously going to be Chelsea and Real Madrid have been mentioned again. I mean, Chelsea are a threat to Manchester United as they are a threat to anybody else. They just hoover talent up, and they don't really care if they've got a squad of 50. They'll just loan them out. But what Man United have got to do is show these players the pathway to the first team, which is something that Real Madrid do, to be fair. So I think that would go. Anselmino, that's the name. Thanks everyone in the chat. Absolutely spot on. Well done. So yeah, no, look, I can't really say any more about it. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. Apparently, these types of players are being looked at in January. I mean, what I will say is there's no mention of the price, and that's something I was going to ask you lot. I mean, if we are to make a move in January for Nipan or Mastantuono or Rigg, who all play in similar positions, then how much are they going to cost? They're all 17. They're all playing football. So, I mean, I'd be happy with one of them, to be honest. But you wouldn't expect to be paying any more than 20, 25 million for any of them, would you? So when you look at that and you look at what it's going to cost for it, I think the takeaway for me is when you look at Obi Martin and Lasali and Kone and Anselmino and this other lad from Argentina and Nipan and Rigg, you're going to pay somewhere between 50 and 30 million for them at 17. But the minute they hit 21, you're going to pay 60 to 100 million pounds for them. And that's the thing, isn't it? It's about finding the players that are 16, 17, 18, being sure enough that you want to pay 20 million for them, knowing that in 3 or 4 years, they're going to be worth 3 times that. And that's the financial benefit, but also it's the benefit of scouting well, which we haven't necessarily done. So look, I'm excited about it. Let's wait and see. Look, I'd be very happy. I don't know about you. We've spoken about the January transfer window. We've spoken about left back, but I'd be very happy if we use the January. We don't have to go and buy a £60 million player in January. In fact, it's very unlikely. But if we bring a couple of youngsters in for about 40 million, I'd be very happy. I don't really mind what we do as long as we are looking to progress this football club over a longer vision, because most of our players are going to get better. There's 3 or 4 that are going to get worse because they're in their 30s, but lots of our players have the potential to get better. Let's talk about Inzaghi next. There's a lot to get into on the show. Obviously, some very interesting comments from Patrice Evra. I want to talk about this new role for a Man United superstar. But let's talk about some reports that are coming in from Italy. You might have seen them around various Manchester United aggregator websites, of which there are numerous. We are the best. But yeah, so lots of people talking about this story coming out of Italy. I think the origins of it is an Inter Milan specific website, and they're basically saying that talks have taken place with Inzaghi, the Inter Milan manager, and he is intrigued and interested in joining Manchester United next summer. It goes on to say the betrayal of Inter Milan. But look, I think in relation to the manager situation, I also read a story yesterday from former Man United scout Mick Brown, is it? He's said a few things over the recent months, saying that Eddie Howe would be interested in the Man United job and he'd be a good appointment. Obviously, these stories are not as hot as they were a couple of weeks ago because we've beaten Brentford. We've got lots of games now. It's not the international break. But speculation about managers replacing Ten Hag is absolutely fine because his position is not completely secure. But there is also the pinch of salt that you have to take with it. But I think what I would say is what I said last night about Xavi. If we're talking about next summer, any football club has to have irons in the fire. Brighton, as I've said to you many times before, and it's interesting to mention the word Brighton because we've just spoken about 3 17-year-olds who might be superstars of the future. Well, that's Brighton. Brighton's recruitment is fantastic at that sort of thing. We're now going to talk about managers. And again, Brighton's recruitment is fantastic. Brighton, over the last, probably since Chris Hughton, to be fair, their manager, and Chris Hughton did well to a point, their managerial recruitment has been fantastic. And they will already know who their next manager is, Brighton. They'll already have a shortlist, even though they won't be looking to remove this one or lose this one for at least 2 years. But they'll already be looking at who the next one is. That's how you run a football club. I don't mind Man United being linked to Xavi, Tuchel, Iniesta. I don't know why I said Iniesta. I think it was because of Xavi. Words that go together, like bread and butter. When I say Xavi, I automatically want to say Iniesta in the next sentence. It's weird that, isn't it? But yeah, Xavi, Inzaghi, Nagelsmann, Tuchel, Eddie Howe. I don't mind Man United being linked to stories about managers because we're Manchester United. We've not had the best start to the season. But also, I absolutely agree with the fact that it's very difficult to go and get a manager if you know your manager's going in 6 months' time. Look at what happened. We're going to talk about Sir Alex in a moment, but look at what happened with Klopp. Klopp said he was going in December. They didn't get their first 2 choices. I mean, they've ended up with a very good choice because they've done a good job, but let's be honest, Liverpool's top 2 choices would have been Alonso and probably Amorim, I think, or maybe somebody else. But, they've ended up with a good coach, but it's not easy. So I think that I don't mind Man United being linked to managers. I think what I will say is what I said last night. We're not in talks with these managers to become managers yet. But you can be speaking to intermediaries. You can be, what's the problem with that? What's the problem in sort of having a bit of a chat with Inzaghi's agent and saying, look, doing a great job at Inter. We don't want you at the moment, but, down the line, is Man United something that would interest him? And if the agent speaks to Inzaghi, Inzaghi says, I'd love to manage in the Premier League and I'd love to manage Man United at some point, you stop the conversation there. And what's wrong with that? And I think some people just don't look at that. It's always green or reds and nothing in between, as we've said before. And look, if I was running Man United, I'd be doing it. I'm sure you would be doing it. I'm sure Brighton do it. I'm sure Chelsea are doing it. You've always got to have an eye on who's interested in taking your job if it becomes available. Now, whether you can do that deal or not is obviously beyond control. But maybe we have had a bit of a chat with Inzaghi's intermediaries. Maybe he would be interested in taking the Man United job in the summer. But it's going to be in the future, isn't it? And as we spoke about with Xavi last night, well done to this community, because a lot of people were reacting to that Xavi story from Chris Wheeler like we'd been in talks with him. It's very clear that those talks were in the summer when we were looking at options. Acid23 with our first super chat of the day. You're a legend, mate. Well done. Mastantuno is a player some of us were talking about before the summer. I would move mountains to get him and see if we can get Galler from Madrid too. Why do people talk about Galler from Madrid? Why would they ever give him up? I mean, having said that, they gave up Odegaard. They've given up other players in the past. You can't pick them all. But look, how many times can you beat Real Madrid to a target that they want? Not very often. We did it with Yoro. Could we do it again? Let's wait and see. But there will be other Mastantunos. There will be other Nipans. There will be other Riggs. There will be other youngsters coming through. The funny thing about all of these players is they're left-footed. Is that a growing thing now? I mean, when I was playing football, you didn't get that many left footers, but they're all left footers, aren't they? Isaac says we should just buy the whole Madrid team. Well, I wouldn't mind Vinicius Jr., but that's never going to happen. I think he is now the best player in the world as far as I'm concerned. He's been my favourite player in the world for a long time, but I think he is the best player in the world. Interesting how Garnacho was replying to his Instagram saying big inspiration. I mean, a lot. You know what? Actually, it is a news show. We should react to this. So Garnacho put in a reply to Vinicius Jr., big inspiration. And yeah, it's some people have took it the wrong way again. This lad wants to play for Real Madrid. I suppose if you're a certain age, you'll understand what I'm about to say. If you're not, you're going to get what I was like with Ronaldo. Very, very very, very angry, very, hurt, very resolute. I hated it when Ronaldo went to Real Madrid, but I always knew he wanted to go there. But I was like, we're Manchester United. What he's not going to go to Real Madrid. I think with Garnacho, he will end up at Real Madrid. I think he will push to go to Real Madrid as well. I think that's where he sees his career. We've just got to make sure that he achieves that, because we'll make a lot of money and we'll be very successful in the time that he is here. And that's why looking at the next Garnacho is really important. Until we become the Man United that we should be, then we can't get our knickers in a twist about players wanting to play for Real Madrid. You're trying to reinvent the wheel. You're trying to change history. Real Madrid took Cristiano Ronaldo. We'd won the last 2 Premier Leagues with him. He'd just won the Ballon d'Or. We'd won the Champions League. We'd been in the Champions League final for 2 years in a row. And he still wanted to go. You can't stop it if a player wants to go to Real Madrid. So, look, I think he will end up at Real Madrid, but I don't think him saying that Vinicius Jr. is a big inspiration is him begging to go to Real Madrid. I think that Vinicius Jr. is a big inspiration, and he was absolutely brilliant last night. And I think a lot of people would look at Vinicius Jr., who is a winger in world football, like Anthony Gordon probably did, Marcus Rashford probably did, and was like, that's what you want to be doing, because he was absolutely unbelievable. On a stage like that, the individualism of his goals was fantastic. And if people like Garnacho are watching him as a big inspiration, then it only benefits Manchester United. But Kobe Mainoo could go to Real Madrid if we continue to be a club that can't get in the top 4. Rasmus Højlund could go to Barcelona if we were... There's loads of players that could go somewhere. You've just got to live in the now. And we're all very, as I say, resolute and focused on our football club because we're Man United fans. But players will go, players will leave. I think in life, where you can, whether it's somebody who you break up with in a relationship, leaves your football club, leaves your place of work, a lot of the time it ends badly, but you should always try to end it amicably. It doesn't mean you're happy about them going, but you see you see it, you move on. And I think that's something that we're maybe not used to, but we're not actually used to big clubs wanting our players. It's like I said about Scott McTominay, him going off to Napoli for £25 million and doing well is a positive. I don't know why people are going, oh, we shouldn't have let him go. We shouldn't let him go. It's a bloody mistake. What are we doing? I'm like, we should be letting him go because it shows the world that Man United players are good players and you can buy them for good prices and they will do good jobs for you. And that's not been happening for a very long time. But with regards to Garnacho, we've sort of pivoted off a little bit there, but I don't think he's going to Real Madrid for at least after the next World Cup. And that's a season and a half. So... I'm not worried about that at all. Liam says, buy them, grow them, sell them. Pure profit and potential, says Liam. Look, Real Madrid do it. They just do it in a different way. Good morning. Hope you're well, says Scott. I hope you are as well, Scott. Thank you very much for that. Lots of people talking about that. Rumour is that I've been approached. Okay. Would you take Inzaghi, Mark? I've said what I want to say about the managerial situation. If we're talking about talking to managers about potential interest, if we need to replace Ten Hag, I don't mind. But we're not talking about replacing Ten Hag now. We would be talking in the summer. And there's a lot of work to do, which I'm very excited about in the immediate short term. And I'm very excited about the likes of Rasmus, Garnacho, Rashford, Bruno, the team that we have at the moment. And we've got a lot of young players coming through as well. Let's just move on, because there is a few other bits I wanted to talk about. Oh, just very, very quickly on Eddie Howe. No, there's not one part of me that thinks Eddie Howe is a Man United manager, and that's not because he's English. I just don't think that's Manchester United. Would Man City give Eddie Howe the job? And you do need to think like that. I mean, they might give Eddie Howe the job next season in the National League. He'd be very good. But in a seriousness, we need to act like the best clubs in Europe. Would Real Madrid give Eddie Howe the job? Would Man City give Eddie Howe the job? Would Arsenal give Eddie Howe the job? So, no, they wouldn't. None of them would. So, we need to be recruiting the best. And that leads nicely into, I saw a piece yesterday from Patrice Evra talking about Mourinho, who's very topical at the moment. Well-timed interview from Patrice Evra talking on a podcast about how he was convinced and had heard that Jose Mourinho wanted the Manchester United job after Sir Alex Ferguson in 2013. And he references the game against Real Madrid where Nani got sent off, which was, to me, sort of, it's remembered, but it's buried. And this is about knowing your history and thinking about your history, because in 2008, we should have won the treble. We were cheated by a shit referee who basically Portsmouth beat us. We had a man sent off. I can't remember whether it was the keeper in that game, but we had a man sent off, and Portsmouth beat us at Old Trafford in the FA Cup and went on to win the FA Cup. We won the treble, and we should have beat Portsmouth. We were robbed. But that Real Madrid game in Sir Alex Ferguson's final season was, we were going to knock them out. We were going to knock Real Madrid out in 2012 and to 2013. And we got done by shit officiating. They sent Nani off for next to nothing. And Real Madrid ended up winning the game. And that was Sir Alex Ferguson's last ever Champions League game. Whether we'd have won the Champions League that year, I can't remember who won it in 2013. Was it Chelsea or was that the year before? Anyway, it matters not. After that game, Jose Mourinho was basically kissing the arse of Man United. I've never seen Mourinho act like that before. He's normally very, up himself when he wins a game. He was very respectful and spoke fantastically in the interview. Bayern won it that year. Okay. So, Evra saying that Mourinho wanted that job. I remember after that Real Madrid game, it felt like he wanted the Man United job. Obviously ended up taking the Chelsea job. I don't know whether this works with Evra's statement, because I'm pretty sure that we couldn't get Mourinho because Sir Alex decided he was going very late and Mourinho had already decided to go to Chelsea. And I think at that point, other managers had agreed to go somewhere. But the best team lost, says Dan. That's what Mourinho said. Patrice Evra is basically saying that Sir Alex wanted Jose, Jose wanted Manchester United, Man United players wanted Jose, but it was Sir Bobby Charlton, rest in peace, who didn't want Mourinho because of his antics in the past, especially at Madrid, where, there was lots of bad incidents on the touchline involving Mourinho, and they didn't feel that it would suit Manchester United. I'm not quite comfortable with this conversation, to be honest with you, because I saw a lot of people online yesterday saying, oh, God, we could have had Mourinho and it was Sir Bobby who stopped it. Two things, really. One, I'm not convinced we could have got Mourinho because the story goes that Chelsea had that lined up way before Sir Alex Ferguson announced his retirement. So how would that work? I think Mourinho wanted the Man United job but had already committed to Chelsea. I think that's what happened. And also, Sir Bobby Charlton is the embodiment of Manchester United. He is literally our most important player for multiple reasons. And I don't like stories that basically put it on Sir Bobby that we didn't get Jose Mourinho 3 or 4 years before we did. It's the past. We can't do anything about it. Shoulda, woulda, coulda. But I'm not going to sit here and go, oh, it's a disgrace that Sir Bobby didn't want him, because Sir Bobby Charlton's way more important to me than Mourinho's legacy, because Sir Bobby Charlton is Manchester United. And also, do I trust Patrice Evra to be telling the truth on that, or is it just his opinion? I think it's just his opinion. I remember it very vividly, and we were up the shit creek without a paddle. There was a number of managers that we could have gone for that had all committed to other jobs. I think Ancelotti had committed to something. Pep had gone or was doing something. It was probably too soon for Klopp, and Mourinho had given up to go to Chelsea. So I've always said Mourinho should have took over after Sir Alex. That would have been the dream. But I don't actually think it was possible, and I certainly don't think it falls on to Sir Bobby Charlton. I just don't think it was possible. I remember at the time being absolutely devastated that we got David Moyes. I knew it was a bad idea. I just knew it was a bad idea. But I think it was just, I don't think Sir Alex Ferguson told the club until it was very late, because I don't think he decided until it was very late, because he decided because of his wife and he wanted to spend time with her. And I don't think United were prepped, and I don't think they were ready. And I think by that time, all the good targets had gone, which goes back to, we're not walking down memory lane for a reason. We're playing Mourinho tomorrow. Evra said this week, but also on the managerial situation, even if you're very happy with what you've got to be having conversations about replacements all the time. Like Man City will definitely be having conversations at the moment because Pep might go in the summer. Arsenal will definitely be monitoring, because you never know how quickly it can go wrong with Arteta. So you've always got to be looking, because Man United definitely got caught out when Sir Alex retired. Scott Botham said, would you ever take Jose back? No. I think it's... I think Jose Mourinho's done very well to stay relevant in the modern game, because Arsene Wenger just fell off. Very few managers get to walk out the front door being clapped and a guard of honour, and Sir Alex had that. Very few get that. Jurgen Klopp obviously has at Liverpool because he decided to go as well. But most, even the greats, end up going out the back door sacked. And that's what happened with Wenger. So I think Jose's done very well to retain a career when the game has changed so massively from when he was dominant. Mourinho can't... There's no reason Jose can't be dominant in the modern game, apart from the fact that football's just moved on so much from the style of football that he was almost unbeatable with. I mean, he's 61. He's 61 years of age. It's not like... He's still very young for a manager. Ancelotti's 65. They've still got... Sir Alex was what? In his 70s when he retired? He must have been about 70. So, yeah. Anyway, hi, Mark. Hope you're having a good morning. Where do you think we'll be in a year's time with our left-back situation, says Rocket Games? I mean, I wouldn't bet on anything, mate, would you? I mean, I can't believe we haven't got a left-back now. I find it absolutely incredible, to be honest with you. Career Mode's back this afternoon. Yes, looking forward to it. I just want to say as well, there was a question from Ladios earlier about what's going on with Xerxes. This story, I thought we killed it dead on Monday, but it's pathetic. There's a pathetic story going out there at the moment about Xerxes wanting to leave Manchester United and go back to Italy. It's complete and utter horseshit, and it is really what we should be all used to in relation to Manchester United, whereby they've got to tell a story. There has to be a story about Manchester United, and yeah, I don't believe anything in relation to Xerxes. I think it's just patience and time that is needed. Vaughan says Wenger wasn't sacked; it was mutual agreement. Yeah, that's the sack, mate. When the people that employ you call you into the office and say, we think it might be time for you to go, but we want to do it as a mutual agreement, that's basically them saying, you're going to get fired, but we respect you, so we would rather do it where it's by mutual agreement. They didn't want Wenger to stay anymore. And quite rightly, it was the right thing to do it by mutual agreement, but he was done. Definitely. And he hasn't managed since as BC. Let's talk about Marcus Rashford. I wanted to have a quick chat with you about this one. Get your questions in, of course. So, a lot of people have been talking about this. I'm going to do it as a poll. I suppose that's the best way to start it. Should Rashford become a right winger? There's a lot of talk in the UK at the moment, and I know not everyone's watching from the UK, that Marcus Rashford should positionally change to the right wing. Do you think that is a good move for him and a good move for Manchester United? To be fair, I'd say over the last 2 or 3 years, I've heard this before. I might have said it myself, that there's no reason why he couldn't be a good right-hand side attacker as much as a left-hand side attacker, because he's right-footed. And although a lot of people play inverted now, there is no reason why he couldn't do well on the right-hand side. But I think the biggest barrier is, does he want to do that? Now, let's take on board that he does. Well, there's no reason why he couldn't be good at that. There aren't that many, though. There's not that many teams that play with naturally left-footed players on the left and right-footed players on the right. In fact, it's sort of the modern way. It's the hipster modern manager way to play with, opposite-footed players so that they cut inside and shoot. And the reason that they do that, by the way, is because if you cut inside and shoot with your right foot from the left, you're shooting at the goal straight on. So you can shoot top corner both sides, bottom corner both sides. You can get better power on it. You've got more of the goal to shoot at. When you're a right-footed winger and you shoot, you're shooting at an angle all the time. The goal is smaller. You're shooting across the goal. Whereas when you cut inside, you're shooting either side because you've got more of the goal to shoot at. So that's why they do it. Also, when you cut inside, you're cutting inside to a large area of the pitch on your stronger foot. The only benefit of being a right-footed player on the right wing is for crossing the ball. And a lot of teams don't cross the ball anymore. So for shooting, you're better off cutting inside. And for passing and possession play, you're better off cutting inside because you're on your stronger foot. For if you want to be crossing the ball in, you're better having your natural wingers. And that is why, in a very short minute, because a lot of people ask this, why is it so many teams play with left-footed players on the right and right-footed players on the left? And that's why, because your goal opportunity increases and your possession retention increases. Obviously, the natural cross is the downside. So look, if we put Marcus Rashford on the right-hand side for creativity, it would work because he's got, as we saw at the weekend. But there's two issues with this. One, does Marcus Rashford want to do it? And two, does Erik ten Hag want to do it? And I think that's why I don't think it will happen. I'm actually against it. I might be in a minority here, but 64% of you are saying you would do it. I'm actually against it because I think that Rashford's better off the left. I think Rashford, when he's running at a fullback, a bit like Vinicius Junior was yesterday, exactly like he was yesterday. When you get that fullback exposed and you cut inside and shoot, you're on your strong foot. Is it worth turning Marcus Rashford into a right winger to try and get Beckham-esque crosses 10 times a game? I don't think you're going to get it because I don't think Marcus Rashford's ever going to be that player. I think he's capable of putting a good cross in, but I don't think he's going to change his game and go, yeah, it's worth sacrificing my ability to cut in and shoot to put me on the right wing for the occasionally good cross. I don't think it's worth it. I think he's better off the left. But what I will say is, in the short term, if he's doing well and he's happy to play there, then I don't see any problem with it. But I still think he's better off the left, and I think that's the best place for him. Robert McCormack says, we need him on the left or goals will dry up. Well, yeah, but that's the competition between him and Garnacho, isn't it? I think Garnacho needs to get more goals. We were speaking about him a few minutes ago and being inspired by Vinicius Junior and seeing what Marcus Rashford's done when he's had good seasons. We do need goals from Garnacho if he is to compete for that position, because we know that Rashford can score 20, 30 goals from there when he's on fire. And when you look at Garnacho against Brentford, great goal, could have had 2 or 3. So we do need, I agree with you, we do need those goals from the wing because we still don't create enough chances for our striker. I don't know whether anybody can give us the answer to this now, but I think I'm right in saying that Rasmus only had 1 shot on goal and he scored it. So our wingers still, and Bruno, aren't very good at creating chances for the number 9. So if they're not very good at that, then they've got to contribute with goals to make up for that. Rashi was only good on the left with Shaw behind him, says Parker. And Acid23 says, I'm at work at the moment, so it's a slow reply. Odegaard leaving was my angle with Goulet. We missed out on Echeverria and Alvarez, who Rangnick recommended. Let's do this now. I reckon that Echeverria is he not on loan in the MLS at the moment? And he's a Man City player, isn't he? Man City's recruitment is just not going to stop. And if they don't get kicked out of the league, they'll dominate for years and years and years. They've recruited some fantastic young players. Rashi is best on the left and everyone knows it, says Maxwell. And Robinson says, if Rashford's so good on the right, let him play there and Antony on the left. Sam Lewis says, sell Casemiro and Rashford and buy Pedri from Barcelona. That's very, Sam says again, buy Pedri. The best modern wingers, wide attackers, can be dangerous on both sides, says John Tanner. Well, what you ideally want is a player that can use their left foot or a player that can use their weak foot. I've seen it with Garnacho at the weekends. He, the shot where he hit it into the side netting in the first half, that's left foot. That's a left foot shot. So what you actually want, there's nothing wrong with having a very strong, dominant foot that you're brilliant with, but you've got to be decent with the other foot because that's when the game gets interesting. I mean, Antony is just so left-footed. It's incredible. Apparently, Daniel Day-Lewis took inspiration from Antony for the film My Left Foot. It was he's so left-footed. So, yeah, I think if you could have a winger that was actually decent on both feet, it would change everything. Liam says, is Rashi better than Garnacho at the moment? No left back won't help, says Liam. Is Rashford better than Garnacho? I don't really want to answer that, Liam, because I feel it's a bit like... I think it's a fair question to answer, but I'm also very wary of this ridiculous, pathetic Garnacho versus Rashford thing that's going on in the fan base, which I think is just completely and utterly toxic. So I don't really want to comment on it because I don't see why we can't have 2 wingers that we like competing for the same position. And also, I don't see why both can't play in the same team as they did at the weekend. But obviously, I think the more valuable player for Manchester United is Garnacho, because at 20, what will he be at 22? And if he does get sold, we're probably going to do over 100 million for him, or very close to that. Whereas Rashford, I think we've seen the best of Rashford, and it's about trying to find the best of Rashford. When he's at his best, I would say he's better than Garnacho, but that's because his best is a season like the first season. Whether he can do that again, I don't know. But we don't know what the best of Garnacho is either. I've said this for a couple of years now. Garnacho's got the highest ceiling in our squad. He could really be one of the top 5 players in the world by the time he's 24. Whether he's going to achieve that depends on whether he can keep moving up the graph. Do you think it would work if Rashford and Garnacho played more on the inside and have a striker drop into space like a false 9, says Sims? Well, I think that's a very, very good question. And Akil says we need unpredictability from the wingers. Absolutely. We spoke about this at the weekend. We need unpredictability from Manchester United because we scored unpredictable goals against Brentford and that's what caught them out. Yeah, great question from Sims. Do you think we should be playing with a false 9 with Rashford and Garnacho pushing forward? I mean, I think this is something that we've spoken about a long time, and I think it is tactical. Rashford gets a lot of stick for not tracking back, but there's no way the manager's telling him to track back because you just sub him and drop him. Like, we see Rashford not track back, and if we see it, the manager sees it. So I think that the way Ten Hag is trying to play is to keep Garnacho and Rashford high up the pitch. And we saw it against Brentford in the second half. He wants them high up the pitch so that they can exploit the fullbacks. And that means you don't always want them tracking back. You need them high up the pitch. And obviously a number 9 that can bring them into the play is important. Xerxes potentially was brought in for that. I don't think Rasmus is particularly bad at when he's got the ball, carrying the ball and playing people in. But I definitely would agree that we want to play with a front 3. And we want our wide wingers to be goal scorers as well. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what I actually think about that, because I also think that when you look at the top teams, it's good to have wingers that can score, but your striker should always be the end point. Like, if you look at what Spain did in the tournament that they won, if you look at Manchester City, if you look at Arsenal to a certain extent, it's not about Martinelli and Saka scoring the goals. They do score goals, but they are looking for the central ball into a Havertz. So I think United are a little bit too ignorant about their number 9 and have been for a long time, but that's where the unpredictability comes in. Kai says, how do we get Xerxes confident again? Will we need him firing before we hit European competition? There's nothing more, there's no quicker path to confidence than throwing somebody into a winning team. So if you're putting Xerxes into a team that's struggling and then the chance comes and he misses it, he's just going to fall deeper and deeper into that hole of uncertainty. If he's coming off the bench and Man United are 3-0 up at Old Trafford and everyone's roaring and he's getting a couple of chances and he scores, the confidence is going to grow. It's the same for a young player. You want to bring these new signings and young players into a team that is set and confident and, welcoming. I think with Xerxes, he will get better with Man United as we get better. The environment needs to be right, and it won't always need to be right. It's not like Xerxes will only play well when Man United are playing well, but he needs to get used to being a Man United player. And the best way to do that is doing it in a team that's doing well and learning about the club and learning about the atmosphere. And I think he could have had a much better start. He's missed some real sitters, but the goal against Fulham mustn't be forgotten. It was a fantastic finish. So I just think with Xerxes at the moment, let's use Rasmus, Rashford and Garnacho as the starting 3, but let's try and get him involved and build the confidence. Because when he came on against Brentford, it wasn't great, to be honest. I was getting a bit worried because we weren't occupying the Brentford centre-backs anymore, and I was like, are they going to get higher up the pitch and create a few chances? But we just got to persevere. He's a new player. I think, and you talk about creativity, I think if we can get him playing well, there is no doubt the feedback is he's a very, very talented player. Gutierrez for left back, says Dav. And I don't think Casemiro is confident nowadays because he's just getting red cards and not good passes, says Elliot. Do you see Xerxes saying did you see Xerxes saying he's open to go back to Italy? But he hasn't said that, has he? Yeah, he hasn't said that. That's just a story that I was talking about on Monday night, saying it's pathetic. And as a fan base, we do need to talk about it, because if we don't, then it will be allowed to grow into something it's not. He doesn't want to do that. And actually what it is just another story and rumour that's there to derail and cause Manchester United problems, because that's what sells newspapers, isn't it? Rashford, okay, I'm not going to read that, Joe, unfortunately. The keeper saved that effort from Garnacho, I think, says Ben. And I would love to see Anthony on the left wing and Rashford on the right wing to see proper old school crossing, says Misfit. Is there a team out there that does that anymore? Anders says, do you have hope on Kone, Mark? Well, we spoke about this last night. Obviously, there's a few youngsters training with the first team at the moment, actually right now, this morning. Some of them might make the trip to Turkey as well. But if you're good enough, you're old enough. And I think with Kone, there is this belief that he could go straight into that first team training squad and start knocking on the door. As a midfield player, that would be very, very welcome at the moment. What we've got to be careful about is throwing a player in when they're not quite ready. 17 is very, very young when you think that Mainu was, 18, 19 when we throw him in. So, yeah, look, I wouldn't be surprised if Kone would start getting involved with the first team, and it would be a really, really good positive. But I also, you've got to be realistic. It was only yesterday and they were saying that Obi Martin won't be rushed and might be a player that, spends most of the season with the under-21s. In fact, I've just retweeted a bit of open training footage from the United stand because we're there for the open training at the moment, just getting you some footage that's going on. Apparently, Johnny Evans hasn't travelled. Okay, that has come out from the Manchester Evening News. Johnny Evans is not training this morning and is a doubt to travel for the game against Fenerbahce. Well, if you watched my my preview, if you watched the preview, I didn't put Johnny Evans in my team anyway because I feel that he is... there's no point. I'd keep Johnny Evans for West Ham. At 35, Johnny Evans playing Thursday, Sunday in 2 away games to me just doesn't seem any point of it. Tyrone, hope you're doing well. Tyrone says, Tyrone's been a regular viewer for many, many years in the live chat here. Says, I'm disappointed in Ahmad this season. He's been given adequate opportunities, hasn't grabbed the chances with both hands. Ooh. Well, look, fair play to Tyrone. It's an opinion, and in some ways, I don't think it's inaccurate. I mean, Ahmad has been given the opportunities this season, and after a really good pre-season, and I thought he was quite decent at the start, he has drifted a little bit into a few average performances. So he's got to step it up. There's a lot of support for Ahmad in this community, and it's almost like he can't do anything wrong. But at the moment, he doesn't deserve to start. It's got to be Rashford and it's got to be Garnacho. So I'd say it's time to step up for Ahmad because there is a really talented player there. But it's about consistency. It's always about consistency. Right, I'm back with you at 2 o'clock today because Beth's in Turkey, and it's a 7 o'clock show tonight because we're doing Barca, Bayern and Leipzig, Liverpool. Brilliant Champions League night last night, actually, on That's Football, so we'll be live for that at 8 o'clock. Liam says Evans is actually 36. Yeah, well, that just makes it even more relevant then, doesn't it? Take care, everybody. Make sure you smash a like on the video on your way out. We're nearly at 1,000 likes, and I will speak to you all a little bit later. Career mode later today as well. If you want to talk about signings, I've probably made the best signing for Man United in living memory when it comes to career modes on a computer. Speak to you later. Take care.